When you look back at the season from hell that the Fever had, none of us expected them to be in this situation. None of us expected them to be winning a very close Game 3.
What if I told you Caitlin Clark might actually suit up for the WNBA Finals? That's the question that's been fueling a firestorm of hope across the entire WNBA fan base. It's a tantalizing idea, the kind of storybook ending everyone wants to believe is possible. But what if I told you that question isn't just based on a long shot? It's based on a complete and total lie. And what if I told you the most powerful people in the league, including the WNBA Commissioner, know it's a lie, and they are letting you believe it anyway? For all the narrative analysts watching, you know that when a story feels too good to be true, it almost always is. Today, we are connecting the dots to expose what we believe is a deliberate scandal happening in plain sight. We're going to show you the hard evidence that proves Caitlin Clark's return is impossible, reveal the billion-dollar motive for why the league is refusing to shut the rumors down, and demonstrate how the commissioner's office has been caught actively exploiting the hope of the fans to manufacture hype for the WNBA Finals. This isn't just speculation, it's an investigation into a calculated betrayal. We live for this kind of deep dive analysis. So if you believe that the story behind the story is what really matters, show your support and smash that like button. It tells us we're on the right track and fuels our mission to expose the narratives the league would rather keep hidden. All right, let's filter out the noise. Before we get to the scandal, we have to dismantle the lie it's built on. The entire fantasy of a Caitlin Clark return hinges on this idea of a secret loophole in the CBA and the fact that the Indiana Fever suspiciously left one roster spot open. It's the perfect breadcrumb for fans to follow. But it leads absolutely nowhere. Here's the hard truth, the part they buried in the procedural fine print. According to the WNBA's own rules, playoff rosters are locked once they are submitted at the end of the regular season. The Indiana Fever did not include Caitlin Clark on that final active roster. And because of that one simple fact, she is officially and legally ineligible to be activated for the rest of the postseason, regardless of her medical status. The so-called loophole that these other channels are breathlessly reporting on, the one that allows a team to activate an injured player, only applies if that player was on the submitted roster in the first place. Clark wasn't. The only way around this would be for the commissioner to grant an extraordinary, unprecedented league exception, something that has virtually never happened for a situation like this in the history of the WNBA. So, if her return is a procedural impossibility, why would the league office and the commissioner herself allow this false narrative to run wild? Why wouldn't they issue a simple, definitive statement to shut it all down? Well, for our fellow narrative analysts, the answer is always the same. You have to follow the money. Let's be brutally honest about what Caitlin Clark represents to the WNBA. This isn't just about one player. It's about a cultural and economic phenomenon. In the 13 games she played this season, Clark single-handedly transformed the Indiana Fever from a rebuilding afterthought into the league's must-watch team. Arenas were selling out on the road. TV ratings shattered previous records. She became the face of multi-million-dollar sponsorships and the economic engine driving unprecedented new interest in the league. She isn't just a player. She's a billion-dollar asset, and the league is in the business of leveraging that asset. Keeping the narrative of her potential return alive, even as a fantasy, keeps her name tied to the finals. It keeps casual fans engaged, it fuels debate shows, and it manufactures a level of intrigue that translates directly into ratings and revenue. The league's strategy is simple. Why kill a golden goose? A definitive statement from the commissioner's office saying Caitlin Clark is ineligible would instantly end the debate, and with it, a massive amount of free media hype. So, they remained silent. They allowed channels to produce videos based on false hope. They let fans speculate wildly on social media. And they let the narrative run because the controversy is more profitable than the truth. And this is where the story shifts from savvy business to an outright scandal. Because the league isn't just being quiet, they are actively ignoring a definitive statement from the one person at the center of all of this, Caitlin Clark herself. Here is Exhibit A in our investigation. On September 4th, Clark released an official, heartfelt statement to the fans. In it, she said, quote, "I had hoped to share a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season. Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I am feeling." Think about that. The player at the heart of the storm, the one person who knows her body and her eligibility, told the entire world that her season was over. It doesn't get any clearer than that. And what was the response from the WNBA Commissioner's office? Nothing. Not a press release echoing her statement. Not a tweet to clarify the rules for confused fans. Just silence. A deafening silence that has allowed the what-if narrative to completely drown out the reality. They have been caught letting a fantasy run wild, even after their biggest star gave everyone the truth. So what do you think when you connect those dots? Is the league's silence just a clumsy communications mistake? Or is it a calculated strategy to mislead the fans for profit? Let me know your verdict in the comments below. That silence is the foundation of the scandal, but every good deception needs a piece of evidence for people to cling to. And in this case, the league was handed the perfect red herring, the Indiana Fever's 11-player playoff roster. As many of you who have been tracking this know, teams are allowed to carry 12 players. The Fever chose to submit only 11. To the casual observer and to the content creators desperate for a story, this seems like a deliberate, strategic move, a clue that they were saving a spot for Clark. It became the central pillar of the entire secret return theory. But as narrative analysts, we have to filter out that noise. The league office knows this open spot is meaningless without Clark being on the initial roster submission, yet they allow it to be presented as a key that could unlock her return. It's the perfect smokescreen. It gives them plausible deniability. They can say, "We never claimed she was coming back," while knowingly allowing this ambiguous roster situation to fuel a narrative that directly benefits their bottom line. It's a master class in manipulation, creating an environment where a lie can thrive without ever having to tell the lie yourself. But while the league office quietly counts the engagement numbers and the media channels cash in on the clicks, there's a real human cost to this manufactured drama. And it's being paid by the very players who are authoring one of the most incredible underdog stories in WNBA history. While the world speculates about a ghost, players like Aliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and the rest of that locker room are leaving everything on the floor. Kelsey Mitchell has been on fire, dropping 34 points in a playoff performance that even had Clark on social media saying, "Kelsey, unreal." Aliyah Boston has stepped into a massive leadership role, carrying the team on her back. They are the real story. But their historic achievements are being treated as the opening act for a main event that is never going to happen. The league's silence doesn't just mislead the fans, it disrespects the incredible accomplishments of the athletes who are actually earning the wins. This level of narrative manipulation is what makes this situation so deeply troubling, especially when you place it in historical context. To truly understand the gravity of the commissioner's silence, you have to look at the precedent for moments like this, or in this case, the complete lack of one. Star players getting injured before the playoffs is not a new story in professional sports. It's a tragic but familiar part of the game. In the past, the narrative would have been clear. The focus would be on the team's inspiring resilience and the Stars' long road to recovery for next season. But the WNBA has never had a star with the gravitational pull of Caitlin Clark. They've never had a single player who represents this much money, this much media power, and this much global attention. Our research confirms that in previous injury situations, the idea of a team activating an ineligible star for the finals was never a mainstream media narrative because it was understood to be impossible. The rules were respected, and the story moved on. But the Caitlin Clark effect has changed the playbook. The league is now faced with a billion-dollar temptation it never had before. The temptation to blur the lines between reality and fantasy, if it means keeping their biggest asset in the headlines. This isn't just another injury story. This is a test case for a new, a more cynical era of the WNBA, one where a manufactured narrative might be seen by the front office as more valuable than the truth. So let's connect all the dots and deliver the final verdict. After filtering through all the noise, the picture is undeniable. The WNBA Commissioner's office has been caught in a scandal of its own making. Their silence on Caitlin Clark's eligibility is not an oversight or a communications fumble. It is a deliberate, calculated business strategy. They are knowingly allowing a false narrative to spread, manipulating the emotions of a hopeful fan base to manufacture intrigue and drive ratings for the WNBA Finals. They are leveraging the ambiguity of an open roster spot and ignoring their biggest star's own public statement to build a house of cards. And in doing so, they are disrespecting the incredible achievements of the very team that has fought its way to the league's biggest stage. They got caught putting profits ahead of transparency and hype ahead of the truth. So what's your take on all this? We want to know your final verdict. Drop a comment below with either smart business if you think the league is right to maximize its ratings, or fan betrayal if you believe they've crossed a line. And if you believe, like we do, that the real story is never the official one, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. We are constantly tracking these evolving narratives, and you don't want to miss the next investigation. Finally, if you know another fan who is still holding out hope for a miracle return, share this video with them. Every narrative analyst deserves to know the real story.